Place your Stanley Cup playoff bet with Sports Interaction. Before the game starts, live in play, or how your favorite player will perform. Doing it right since 1997, Sports Interaction is Canada's sportsbook. With the most competitive odds, Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Let's move on to the World Cup. We know it's a thing the NHL is trying to make happen. Are we still on track to see it happen in 2024, CJ?
The most interesting part of this discussion for me was from Bill Daly saying, and I paraphrase, that they acknowledge it has to happen in season for the chance for it to be a viable long-term event, essentially. That for all the years when you consider that the NHL raised issues with the Olympics and NHL participation there, it was always about you can't shut down a season, you lose momentum, the owners don't like it. It's amazing to see that come around. And look, I don't dispute at all what Bill Daly's saying. I think that hockey fans, by and large, would probably rather watch a hockey tournament in the middle of winter. It just makes sense to me. Obviously, the players are in better shape then. When we had the World Cup of Hockey in 2016, the players had to report for like short training camps with their national teams, like the start of September. It's a lot to jump into high level best on best hockey right out of the summer, even for athletes as well conditioned as these guys are. I just think the possibility of a better tournament happens in the middle of the year. And so I thought that was an interesting acknowledgement from Bill Daly, because that's not ever really been the NHL's position in the past when it came to these best on best tournaments. But what's different with this one too? This one, they can make money on themselves, right? That there's not been a clear way for the NHL to benefit, financially, or even NHL players, both from participation in the Olympics. The World Cup is an event run by the league and its players association. If they ever are able to create one that generates all kinds of revenue, they split that. It's outside of the terms of hockey-related revenue. Basically, it's gravy. And so interesting that they're of that mind. The only real issue right now is that to shut down the NHL in February 2024 for a tournament is one thing. To ask all the European leagues, be it the ones in Finland and Switzerland and the KHL potentially to release players, might be another for them. We don't have the international breaks built into the schedule in hockey the way we do in soccer. Maybe in time this will help get that to be something that happens. I think it would be great for the sport. And that to me is a long-term model here, because the NHL doesn't want to just do one World Cup again and then have 8 or 10 or 26 years pass between events. I think ideally you're playing these every 4 years. I think ideally you're playing the Olympics every 4 years as well. So you basically every second year, if you follow my thinking here, you're getting best on best hockey. So the conversations are ongoing. It seems like there's a reasonable push from both sides to make it happen, but there's a lot of hurdles by staging it in the middle of the winter. But it's interesting. The NHL wants it in the middle of the winter now.
Yeah, I think that is very interesting. And I'm on your logic as well. If you have some kind of best on best international tournament every 2 years, a bit similar to what we see with the World Cup and then some of the other big events that happen in each competition. Exactly. That just makes perfect sense. And also the concept of international breaks in hockey, like, geez, if you keep coming up with these things, you should start working in the league office. Well,
the problem with the breaks, right, is it might limit. We might have to see the regular season shortened, to make room for those breaks. But, I think a break is beneficial, actually. I mean, look, the NHL studies this from a business standpoint. I'm going more off the cuff here that I think that it could be smart. But, taking time off, I think, can be beneficial for everyone. I remember reading week in university was always a good time. And it does allow a window then to play these tournaments for the players to get refreshed, recharged. And so maybe that's where we're headed over a period of time. I think it's going to take a while to get there. Let's cross the first hurdle. Let's just get the World Cup played February 2024. Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, right down the line, all these young star players haven't worn their own country's sweater in a best on best tournament. We haven't seen McDavid and Crosby on the same team. How cool would that be? Or Patrick Kane and Matthews. Matthews grew up idolizing Kane. I was all in on that storyline, had we had a Beijing Olympics in 2022. Let's hope for 2024 we can get these guys in their national team sweaters. I love Team North America, don't get me wrong, but that 2016 World Cup wasn't true best on best. I think that there's a better model here, and they're working towards bringing it to us.
That being said, that line that they were able to provide from Team North America is still one of the coolest things we've ever seen in hockey. Having those three players in terms of McKinnon and Matthews and McDavid on the same team, that we will never see that again. I don't think. One other thing, I don't want to belabor
that would
the
be a
point too
super
much.
team. We're going to have to get rid of a hard
Yes.
cap if we ever see them on the same team, wherever it is.
Absolutely. I don't want to belabor this point too much, but with shortening the season, because I know there's been talk about it in the NBA. The biggest thing the biggest question I have with that, and if it were to apply to the NHL, how do owners of each of the buildings in the National Hockey League that have NHL games feel? How would they feel about this? Because that's lost revenue. If you're saying shorten the season, that's definitely going to be fewer games in those buildings. So that's going to be fewer money coming in. That was just in my view, that would be like the biggest hurdle in my eyes of a shortened season ever happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to cross. I mean, maybe the way you do it is if at some point you're signing incredibly rich media deals or rights deals to make up for that. But the reality is, one thing Gary Bettman spoke about at his State of the Union was record revenues for this season. I mean, a lot of those revenues is still come from a gate-driven league. I think more than half of league revenues are come directly from tickets sold in the 32 markets. And so as long as you have that model, the incentive will always be to have as many games as you could possibly squish in without, damaging things, right? I mean, that's essentially why we have a Stanley Cup given out in June, when some have wanted to say, hey, let's roll it back and have the playoffs conclude by the end of May. Say, the reason that doesn't happen is the league wants to play as many games as it can. And look, both sides here are incentivized for that. The players can make more money because there's more dollars coming in. The owners can make more money. So it's not this isn't an evil alliance kind of anything I'm conjuring here, but both sides are the incentives for them are to play as many games as possible. I just wonder, things are going to shift over time. We're going to see what patches put on jerseys, maybe some of the betting related content, which I know has been panned a little bit around the hockey world, hockey Twitter, but maybe that opens up some revenue streams on a level that we haven't seen before. Perhaps there's other ways to make up for the loss of the games, but it's not in our hands right now. I mean, I'm brought out the crystal ball again, and I'm looking about where it could go over time. I'm not saying the conditions are here to have that start in 2022 or 2023.
And maybe after all of those initiatives, we'll see the salary cap actually go up, because they acknowledge that even though they're going to get record high revenue for this season, I believe exceeding $5.2 billion, it might not be another 2-3 years until we see a significant raise in the salary cap.
Do you know what happens in 2-3 years though? Austin Matthews will be playing on a new deal. Connor McDavid's deal in Edmonton will be coming due. We might see a significant jump in the cap just as some of the best players in the league are signing new contracts. And so we might end up seeing some big numbers, a big jump in what the top players are paid. The first one, frankly, is Nathan McKinnon this summer. He can sign his extension as of July 13th. Unfortunately for him, in a sense, there'll be no clear picture of what the cap is in 2025 if he agrees to that deal now. But, I think we're going to see a bump in what players pay here on this next round of big deals that got to get taken care
of. Was there any talk or commentary on the Arizona Coyotes at all?
Nothing really of note. Gary Bettman sort of doubled down. I can't call it doubling down at this point. I mean, we're like 15 years into him doubling down on the market. But he expressed that sentiment, mentioned that there's still a lot of work to be done, but was pleased that the Tempe City Council had at least, voted to move forward with trying to make plans with the Coyotes on a new arena, defended, playing in the NCAA building they're going to be playing in. Mentioned that, the NFL had a team in a soccer stadium recently, and that there's been many past examples of NHL teams that have had go-between situations which weren't ideal, but were part of a larger plan. So nothing meaty, I would say, or nothing that jumped out to me that we haven't heard before. But certainly there was no hint there that the team's moving. I don't think that's in the cards at all at this stage.